Welcome. This is Cheating Facts, real accounts of deception and justice. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I'm here to share true stories of betrayal and the aftermath that follows. Because sometimes the truth needs to be heard. My name is Michael, and I need to tell you about the day I discovered that the two people I trusted most had been systematically destroying my life for months. This isn't just a story about cheating. It's about how workplace affairs can demolish everything you've built, and how sometimes justice serves itself. 3 years ago, I was living what I thought was the perfect life. I owned a successful marketing consultancy with my best friend and business partner, Trevor. We'd built the company from nothing over 8 years, and it had grown into something we were genuinely proud of. My wife, Vanessa, worked as the head of client relations for a competing firm across town. We had our dream house, successful careers, and what I believed was a solid marriage of 12 years. The first sign something was wrong came during our monthly business review meetings. Trevor, who had always been punctual and focused, started showing up distracted. His phone would buzz constantly during discussions, and he'd step out to take calls that he claimed were urgent client matters. When I'd ask about these mysterious urgent clients, he'd give vague answers about potential new accounts that somehow never materialized into actual business. Meanwhile, Vanessa began working later than ever before. She'd always been dedicated to her career, but suddenly she was having strategy sessions that ran until 9 or 10 at night. Weekend work became routine, and she started attending networking events that somehow never resulted in her bringing home business cards or stories about the people she'd met. When I'd ask about her day, she'd give me generic responses about client presentations and market research, but none of it felt real anymore. The turning point came when I noticed they both started receiving text messages at exactly the same times. I'd be having dinner with Vanessa when her phone would buzz, and she'd quickly flip it face down. Later that same evening, Trevor would call me about some minor business matter, but I could hear his phone buzzing in the background. This happened repeatedly over several weeks, and the timing was too consistent to be coincidental. I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperation makes you do things you never thought you would. I installed a tracking app on the company phone that Trevor used for business calls. Technically, since I own half the company and we both had access to all business communications for legal purposes, I wasn't doing anything illegal. What I found made my blood run cold. Trevor wasn't having late-night business calls. He was having late-night personal conversations with Vanessa. The call log showed dozens of conversations, some lasting over an hour, happening at times when they both claimed to be working. But the real evidence came when I checked the location data. Every Tuesday and Thursday, when Vanessa claimed to be at client dinners and Trevor said he was meeting potential investors, they were both at the same location, the Marriott downtown. The timestamps showed they arrived within minutes of each other and left at the same time. This had been happening for 4 months. I felt sick, but I needed absolute proof before I confronted anyone. I couldn't destroy my marriage and business partnership based solely on circumstantial evidence, no matter how damning it appeared. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. The PI was a former police detective named Rodriguez, who specialized in corporate and marital investigations. I explained the situation, provided the evidence I'd already gathered, and asked him to document whatever was happening. He was professional and thorough, explaining exactly what he could and couldn't legally do to gather information. Within 2 weeks, Rodriguez had everything I needed. Photos of them entering and leaving the hotel together. Audio recordings of their phone conversations, where they discussed not just their affair, but their plans for the future, plans that involved them leaving their respective situations and starting a new business together using client lists and strategies, stolen from both our companies. But the most devastating piece of evidence was a recording of them discussing me directly. They weren't just having an affair. They were actively planning to destroy my business and personal life. Trevor was going to terminate our partnership by claiming I was mentally unstable and unfit to run the company, while Vanessa would divorce me and claim I was emotionally abusive to get a larger settlement. They had researched lawyers, discussed timelines, and even planned which of our mutual friends they would try to turn against me. Listening to the two people I trusted most casually discuss manipulating and destroying me was the most painful experience of my life. But it also crystallized my resolve. They had declared war on my life, and I was going to respond strategically. First, I consulted with my own attorney to understand my legal options. I learned that Trevor's plan to claim I was unfit would likely fail because our partnership agreement required medical documentation for any fitness challenges, and I had a clean bill of mental health from my annual physical. More importantly, his attempts to steal client information and business strategies constituted corporate theft, which carried serious legal consequences. For the divorce, I learned that Vanessa's plans to claim abuse would backfire spectacularly because I had evidence of her infidelity and her conspiracy to commit corporate theft. Her affair with my business partner, combined with their plans to steal from both companies, would actually strengthen my position significantly. Then I made a discovery that changed everything. While reviewing our business insurance policies, I found a clause that protected the company against employee theft and corporate espionage. This clause extended to partners and their family members. Vanessa's plan to steal client information from her company to help Trevor wasn't just unethical. It was insurance fraud that would void their coverage and expose both companies to massive liability. I had Rodriguez continue surveillance for another week to establish an ironclad pattern of behavior. Then I prepared for the most difficult day of my life. The confrontation happened during what was supposed to be a routine monthly board meeting. I had scheduled it for a Tuesday at 2 p.m., knowing from their pattern that they would both be planning to meet at the hotel later that afternoon. I invited Vanessa to attend as a guest, claiming I wanted to discuss potential collaboration between our companies. When everyone was seated in our main conference room, Trevor, Vanessa, and our two other employees, I calmly placed a folder on the table and began what might have been the most important presentation of my life. Before we discuss quarterly projections, I said, I need to address a serious security breach that threatens both our company and our client relationships. I watched Trevor's face carefully as I opened the folder and removed the first photograph, him and Vanessa entering the Marriott together the previous Thursday afternoon. These images document a 4-month affair between my business partner and my wife. I continued, placing more photos on the table. But what makes this a business issue is their plan to steal client information and corporate strategies from both our companies. Vanessa went completely pale and started to stand up, but I wasn't finished. Please sit down, Vanessa. There's more. I played a 30-second clip of their recorded conversation, where they discussed which client accounts they planned to steal and how they would approach each one. Trevor finally found his voice. Michael, I can explain. No need, I interrupted. I've already explained everything to our insurance company, our attorney, and Vanessa's employer. That's when the real impact hit them. I had sent copies of all evidence to Vanessa's company that morning, along with documentation of her plans to steal client information. Corporate theft, especially involving client data, was grounds for immediate termination and potential criminal charges. I had also informed our insurance company about the corporate espionage plot, which meant Trevor could be held personally liable for any damages to the company. Our partnership agreement included a morality clause that allowed for immediate dissolution in cases of corporate theft or breach of fiduciary duty. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Vanessa was fired that afternoon and escorted from her building by security. Her company also filed a police report for attempted corporate theft, which gave me additional leverage in the divorce proceedings. Trevor tried to salvage the situation by claiming the affair was personal and unrelated to business, but the recordings proved otherwise. He had explicitly discussed using confidential company information to compete against both our firms. Our attorney informed him that he could either accept a voluntary dissolution of our partnership with minimal compensation or face a lengthy court battle that would likely result in criminal charges and personal bankruptcy. The divorce process was surprisingly smooth once Vanessa's attorney heard the evidence. Her plans to claim emotional abuse and demand a large settlement evaporated when faced with proof of her adultery and conspiracy to commit corporate theft. She accepted a minimal settlement and agreed to leave the state to avoid potential criminal prosecution. 6 months later, I had full control of the business, a clean divorce, and something unexpected, respect from my industry colleagues who had learned about the situation. Word had spread about how I'd handled the betrayal professionally and legally, without destroying innocent people or engaging in petty revenge. Several of Vanessa's former clients reached out to work with us directly, having lost trust in her company's security practices. Trevor moved across the country and, last I heard, was working as a junior account manager for a small firm. His reputation in our industry was destroyed not by anything I did, but by his own choices becoming public knowledge. Vanessa moved back to her hometown and took a job outside the marketing industry. She tried to reach out to me once, months later, claiming she never meant for things to go so far. But I realized that someone who could plan to destroy your life while smiling at you across the breakfast table every morning isn't someone who accidentally went too far. That's someone who revealed their true character when they thought there would be no consequences. The most important lesson I learned is that betrayal reveals character, but your response to betrayal reveals yours. I could have reacted with pure emotion, confronted them privately, or tried to get revenge through petty means. Instead, I gathered evidence, consulted professionals, and responded strategically. That approach didn't just protect me legally and financially, it allowed me to maintain my integrity throughout the process. Today, the business is more successful than ever. I've brought on new partners who share my values, and we've built a company culture based on transparency and mutual respect. I've also started dating again, and while it took time to rebuild my ability to trust, I've learned that not everyone is capable of the level of deception Trevor and Vanessa demonstrated. Sometimes people ask if I feel bad about how harshly their lives were affected. The truth is, I didn't destroy their careers or reputations. I simply allowed the consequences of their choices to unfold naturally. They planned to steal from two companies, destroy a marriage, and manipulate legal proceedings with false accusations. When those plans became public, the professional and personal consequences were inevitable. The real tragedy isn't that they faced consequences for their actions. The tragedy is that two people I loved and trusted were willing to systematically destroy my life for their own benefit, and they never considered the possibility that their choices might backfire. If you're dealing with betrayal in your own life, remember that your response matters more than their actions. Document everything, consult professionals, and respond with your integrity intact. The truth has a way of protecting those who honor it and exposing those who don't. Thanks for watching Cheating Facts Stories. If this resonated with you, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, the truth always finds a way to surface. Sometimes, it just needs the right person to bring it to light.